Today's daf we're going to be learning is Shevuot Daf Kaf Gimel. This is the daf for Shabbat. We're going to get started as a quick review of the Mishna on the previous daf. So we saw if somebody takes an oath that they won't eat and then they eat and drink, they're only liable one. But if they take an oath that says Shelo achal v'shelo ashteh, I won't eat and I won't drink, and they ate and drank, then they're liable too. This is the first part of the Mishnah that we're going to deal with right now. So the Gemara had started off and said we can either learn this from Rabbi Chia bar Avin said the name of Shmuel. Shvuah shelo ochal v'shata chayav. Something the Mishnah didn't discuss, even though Mishnah seems to discuss a lot of cases. But if you say I'm not going to eat and then you drink, you're liable. So then we said either you could say it's logic or you could say it's from a pasuk. Either it's logical because people say let's go eat, and that includes eating and drinking, and therefore it's just included. The second option was to learn it from a pasuk. So we're going to start with that. 3 lines from the bottom of Kaf Bet Amabet. Ibait emaka shia bichlal achila. How so? Da'amar Rish Lakish. Minayin l'shia shia bichlal achila. How do you know that drinking is included within eating? Shneema, with the word eating. ואכלת לפני השם אלוקיך במקום אשר יבחר לשכן שמו שם, מעשר דגנך ותירושך. So you're going to eat before God. Place I tell you, the maaser, talked about this a lot in Makot, of your dagan and tirosh. Now, tirosh, chamrahu, tirosh, right? The maaser, the yitzar is the olive, the dagan and the tirosh. The dagan is your grains, which is food, but tirosh is wine, is the grapes. And tirosh is chamra, that's wine. That's obviously a liquid, and yet it uses the word achila. Uktiv v'achalta, right? So there you have it. But now the Gemara is going to reject this and say, what do you mean? Tirosh is made from grapes, but it could be b'dilma al yedei anigron. The Amar Rabbi Shmuel, anigron maya de silka. What's anigron? It could be anigron was a I don't even know what it was exactly, but a kind of food that they made with the water of the beets, actually the beet leaves, the chard. So it was cooked up chard with the water that was also mixed with wine. Okay, so we're going to have, and as they would put wine in it, and maybe it means eating this chard that had wine in it, but didn't necessarily mean drinking wine. To Amar Rabba bar Shmuel, right, as Rabba bar Shmuel said, that anigron is this liquid from the chard, but it's the chard itself. Okay. And achsigron, this is just what Rabbi Bar Shmuel said. A different thing is maya dekulu silke. This is cooked vegetables with liquid. Okay. Anyway, the point being that it's still solid and not a liquid, and therefore it would improve that drinking something is included in the term liquid included the term eating in the Torah. Ella, so second attempt, El Amarav Acha bar Yaakov Mehachi. So let's learn it from here. V'natata kesef b'chol asher taven nafshecha b'bakaro b'tzon u'b'yayin u'b'shecha. Right, you're going to redeem all of your Maser Sheni stuff, right? Your Maser Sheni produce onto a coin. What kind of things, right? And then you're going to, after you do, you're going to take that money and you're going to go to Jerusalem and you're going to buy all sorts of things: bakar, tzon, yayin, shechal. And it says then, v'achalta sham, and then you're going to eat it there in Jerusalem. And notice what's listed here, wine and beer. That's clearly a liquid. So yayin chamrahu, right? Uktiv v'achalta. Again, there's the proof. No, dilma hachanami al yidei anigron. No, you could say the wine is still mixed up in a cooked vegetable. Okay, but shechar ktiv, beer, it says, and midi, right? Midi de meshaker, something that gets you drunk. Now, only really drinking things get you drunk, and therefore it must be a liquid. And then again, you would have the achalta with a liquid, which is what we're trying to prove. Vidilma dvela ki'ilit, Titania, well, maybe it's this pressed figs dish, which could be intoxicating. Now, here we're going to see Titania achal dvela ki'ilit v'shatad dvash v'chalav v'nichnas l'mikdash v'abad chayav. Okay, in the Torah it says you can't go into the mikdash and work as a kohen if you're drunk. And included in that is someone who eats this devela kili, these pressed figs, or drinks honey or milk, and then goes into the temple, they're liable. Because all these things now, whether they're really intoxicating or they just make you kind of drowsy, okay, right? Some people drink milk before they go to bed. I don't know if people really still do that, but I remember growing up, people talked about that kind of thing. And we saw it with Yael and Sisra, if you remember. She gives him milk. and then he falls asleep, and then she kills him. So these things are considered somewhat intoxicating, which means that maybe it's talking about the dvela ki'ili, which again is a solid and not a liquid. And therefore, that's considered food, but not necessarily the liquids are considered food. So now we're finally going to get our proof. Well, it really is going to be from this pasuk. Rav Acha bar Yaakov brought about the yayin and shechar, but we're going to learn it a little differently. We're going to say alagamar shechar mi nazir, because shechar appears here and also by shechar appears by the nazir. Malahalan yayin aftan yayin. Okay, there it's actually referring to wine, and therefore here we're going to assume it's referring to wine, and therefore we're going to prove from this Gzera Shava, so to speak, this word that appears here and appears there, we're going to understand that it's a liquid. Okay, so there's our proof. So now we had the svara and the pasuk. So we had logic that proved that, it's not really logic, it's more the way people talk on the street. People say, let's go eat, and that includes drink. And this shechar, which is used with eating, and since shechar appears also, Gzera Shava to a nazir, where there the nazir is clearly talking about drinking. Now, Rava comes and says, Rava Ava Ananami Tanina. Oh, in fact, we could prove this whole thing, and that's why we brought this actually from our Mishnah. Because what does our Mishnah say? Okay, that again, the food includes drink. Because it says, Shvuah shelo ochal v'achal v'shata. Eino chayav el echad. You take an oath, I'm not going to eat, and then you eat and drink, you're only liable one. Now, this proves it because if you say drinking includes eating, that explains why the Tana needed to tell us that you're only liable one. But if you say that the word achila does not include drinking, then shvuah shelo ochal, then so right, shvuah shelo ochal, they're going to say something a little kind of sarcastic. But if you say shvuah shelo ochal v'achal v'asam malacha, if I say I'm not going to eat, and then I eat and I do some sort of malacha, some sort of work, do they need to tell me you're only liable one? Meaning, when the Mishnah says if you eat and drink, you're only liable one, that must be because drinking is including and eating. Otherwise, why would they even bother saying it? It's not like some random having nothing to do with anything, which means it must include drinking. Otherwise, there'd be no point to say, oh, well, if you eat and drink, you're only liable one. But Amar le Abaye, he's going to continue in this kind of sarcastic commenting. Abaye says to Rava, Elamai, wait a minute. According to you, though, shtia b'chlal achila, you're saying we can prove from the Mishnah that drinking, the term drinking, is included in the term eating, or the action of drinking is included in the term eating. Ema seifa, but then look at the end of the Mishnah, makes no sense according to you. Because not really the end of the Mishnah, but the end of that statement, meaning the second line there. Shvuah shelo ochal v'shelo eshteh. Take an oath, I won't eat and I won't drink. Ve'achal v'shata, chayav shtayim. And then you eat and then you drink, you're liable too. Now, kevan da'amar lo ochal, itzer le b'shtia. Now, once you already said I won't eat, according to you, Rava, eating includes drinking. So, once I already said I won't eat, that already includes I won't drink. And therefore, ki amar shelo eshteh amai chayav. Why should I be liable when I then said I won't drink? Because once I say I won't eat, it includes drinking. So when I say I won't drink, that's what we call shvuah chalal shvuah. That's a shvuah on top of another shvuah, and we hold ein shvuah chalal shvuah. One shvuah does not, you can't have one shvuah going on another shvuah. Once you said something's forbidden to you, you can't forbid it a second time. So therefore, you wouldn't be liable two. You'd only be liable one if the word eating includes drinking. So comes Abaye and says, I don't understand your proof, Rabbi, because the next line disproves your theory. Right? Ilu amar shelo eshteh trezimni, and here Abaye kind of tops it off by saying, if you had just said, I won't drink twice, say, I won't drink, you wouldn't be chayiv two. So if eating includes drinking, and then you said, I won't eat and I won't drink, then obviously on drinking you said it twice, and it shouldn't be relevant. It shouldn't apply the second oath, and yet it clearly does. So Amar le, Rava answers him back, and we're going to have a little bit of a back and forth here. Hatam da Amar shelo eshteh, v'hadar Amar shelo ochal. D'shtia b'chlal achila ita, but achila b'chal shtia leika. Rava says, according to your question, I'm going to read the Mishnah, and the Mishnah shouldn't read shvuah shelo ochal v'shvuah shelo eshteh. It shouldn't be first you said I won't eat, and then you said I won't drink. It's where you first said I won't drink, and then you said I won't eat. Now, eating includes things that drinking clearly doesn't include. Drinking clearly doesn't include eating. So if you say, I won't drink, and then you say, I won't eat, that's one of those oaths, and we're going to talk about this later also in today's daf, that includes more things. It covers more. It's called an Isur Kolel or an Isur Mosif, depending on which case. But it's adding on more things, or it's including more things that weren't there the first time. So if you say, I won't drink, and then you say, I won't eat, the second one will be in effect because you didn't mention before not eating food. You only mentioned not drinking. So in order to do this, he has to switch the order of the Mishnah. Okay, and that's what he says. Shtia bichlal achila, drinking is included in the term eating, but eating is not included in the term drinking. That's achila bichlal shtia leta. It's not. Aval, but if you had said, so now, according to what Rabbi said, and now the Gemara is going to question this. Wait a minute. According to what you just answered Abaye, aval amar shvur shelo chava shalosh teva chava shatamai enu chayav el achat. So now you're basically caving into Abaye and claiming that if you said, I won't eat and I won't drink, and then you ate and drank, you actually would only be liable once because drinking was already included in eating. So ihachi, if that's the case, then the whole Mishnah, or the whole first section of the Mishnah, doesn't make sense. Because aditani reisha shvur shelo chava chava shatai eno chayav el achat. Instead of choosing the case of the first case, they wanted to bring one case where you're only chayav one, and another case where you're liable twice. So why would they bring the case if I say I won't eat and then I ate and drank, I'm only liable once? That a bigger chidush, the more unique halacha or farther reaching halacha would be lidni shvur shelo chal v'shelo eshteinu chayav el achat. It's even more surprising and unexpected, and therefore they should have brought the more extreme case, which is even if you say I won't eat and I won't drink, and then you eat and drink, you're still only liable one because eating includes drinking. And the second one, therefore, doesn't even come into place. So if what you're saying, Rabbi, is right, the Mishnah should have brought that case in the first part of the Mishnah. The koshken shelo chal, and then you would learn from there, it would be obvious that if you just said lo chal, of course you'll only be liable one, even if you ate and drank. So therefore, we're going to go back and read the Mishnah according to Rava and say, fine, even Rava has to agree that the Mishnah is as we said originally, la'olam kidikatane, that it really is, I won't eat and I won't drink. And shanehacha, why is this case different? In other words, theoretically, usually if you say I won't eat, it does include drink. But what? In the case where you said I won't eat and I won't drink, because you said both, you've basically proven by adding, saying I swear I won't eat and I swear I won't drink. What you're basically saying is, oh, I don't actually think that I'm not going to, in my statement, eating, it doesn't include drinking. The average person on the street would include drinking and eating, but I am not including that in my words, and that's why you said a second oath that I won't drink. And therefore, we're going to treat each oath separately, and you're going to be liable for each one. But most people, when they say eat, it actually does mean drink, and it would normally include it. And that's what Rava, now we can go back to Rava's original proof, and that's why he said, that's why the Mishna has to tell you, when you said I won't eat, and then you eat and drink, you're actually only liable one, because the eating includes the drinking. Rav Ashi is going to bring a further proof from our Mishnah that eating includes drinking also from our Mishnah. How so? So Amar Rav Ashi, Matnita Nami Daika, we can infer it also from our Mishnah, because it says, Shvua shelo ochal, v'achal ochalin she'en ruyin l'achila, v'shatam mishkin she'en ruyin l'shtiyah patur. If you take an oath, this is at the end of later in the Mishnah, that I won't eat, and then you eat or drink inedible foods or drink. Notice, eating includes drinking, right? And you're exempt. Now, what does it say? You're going to be exempt if you drink inedible drinks, but haruyin chayav. But obviously, if you drank edible drinks, you'd be liable. And right, amai hashvur shelo chal kamar. But you said I won't eat. Must be eating includes drinking. That's pretty clear. To which the Gemara says, no, maybe that's not a proof. Dilma to amar tarte. Maybe you said, maybe really the Mishnah meant to say a case where you said shvur shelo chal, shvur shelo ashteh. And maybe it meant if you said I won't eat or I won't drink, then you ate and didn't eat. Okay, it's not exactly the simple reading of the Mishnah, but they say it's not necessarily a clear proof. So what we did in this section, okay, almost an entire Amud, was basically started with how do we know that food includes drink? We brought a proof from logic, from the way people talk on the street. we brought a proof from the psukim, which took a little while to figure out which pasuk, right? And as we tried two psukim, and even the second one, it took a little while until we actually derived it from that pasuk. And then we proved it from the Mishnah. Rava proved it from the Mishnah. Abai struggled with Rava, but we managed to establish Rava. Then Rav Ashi brought also from the Mishnah proof, but that was somewhat rejected. Okay, now we're going to go to the next section of the Mishnah. Shevuot shelo achal v'achal patchitim or seorim or kosmi. Since you just said I won't eat, right? Shevuot shelo achal. You just said I won't eat, and then you ate 3 different types of bread. You're only liable one. But if you said, and this is the key line we're going to focus on, Shevuot shelo achal patchitim upat seorim upat kosmin, 3 different types of breads, and then you ate each of the 3, you're going to be liable for each of the 3. So Dilma lemiftar nafshe machlinatakate. Maybe when you said I won't eat pachitim seorim, right? Wheat, barley, or spelt, maybe what you really meant is the only ones I will eat are the other kinds. But what you're basically trying to say is I'm forbidding these 3, but not the others, which basically means it's really one oath. It's one oath of not eating one category of foods, right? And allowing yourself to eat the others. So they say no. Then, you just should have said, chitim kosmin. And seorim, why did you say pat chitim, pat seorim, pat, right? The word pat repeated 3 times is totally unnecessary, and it must be there to differentiate them, as if I'm really saying 3 different oaths. But we're going to go back and forth with this a little bit and say, well, every time we're going to say it could have said this wording, and the fact that it doesn't means the pot is extra. And that every time we're going to say was to say it could have said that. Not necessarily, because we would have misunderstood and thought something else if we said that. So no, you really couldn't have said chitim sorim or kosmin, because that's actually, you didn't say the word bread at all. You're talking about the grains, and maybe what you meant to forbid was malachos. People would chew on them. It's like a snack. Like we eat nuts, like they would chew on grains. So maybe that's what they meant, and maybe then it wouldn't even include bread. So of course you need the word pot there. Okay, well still, to have it in the way pot chitinu solim because means. So put the word pot in, but put it once. Say bread of wheat, barley, and spelt. Well, dilma pat chitim lechos solim because mean lechos. No, but if you only put the word pot by the wheat, it might have thought only that one is bread, and the other 2 would be to chew on the grains, the kernels, I should say. You could have said it like this. Again, they're going to say, the fact that you said pot this, pot that is obviously to teach you that it's 3 separate oaths. But because you could have said it, if you really were trying to say this bread and not any other bread, right? This bread I won't eat, but the other breads I will eat, then you should have said bread of grains, and you also were saying, and then you wouldn't confuse it and think we mean to chew on the barley and the spelt, because bread of grains, bread of wheat and of barley and of spelt, which makes it clear you're referring back to the bread, which means that you wouldn't really need to say pot 3 times. And the fact that you said pot 3 times must mean that you really meant to say, I'm doing 3 separate oaths, and that's why you get 3. Now turning to Amud Bet, what do you mean? When you say bread of wheat and of barley and of spelt, we could hear it as bread of 3 grains mixed together, meaning I won't eat a bread with those 3 grains together, right? I'm thinking of like going into the store and buying those fancy breads, where they mix all these grains. That's the kind of bread I won't eat. But then I don't mean 3 separate oaths, right? So that's why you couldn't have said that language. They say, Ema, v'chein shel solim, v'chein shel kosmin. Well, okay, here we finally have it. How do we know you really meant 3 separate breads and not just these breads I won't eat, but I'll eat all the other breads? And this is all one group, really, and then only one prohibition if you ate one of them. Because you could have said, v'chein shel solim, v'chein shel kosmin. You could have started with, I won't eat bread of wheat and of barley and of spelt, and then it makes it clear you meant bread. Why did it say pot lamali? Why did it say pot 3 times? Shema mina lechalek. That must mean that you meant to say these are 3 separate oaths, and that's why you use those words as separators. Okay, that was a very long-winded way of just getting to the pot. Really, 2 of them are unnecessary, and the reason is to say these are all 3 distinct units, and you're going to be liable for each one. Okay, we're going to do something kind of similar with the next part of the Mishnah, which is Shvuah shelo eshteh. Say, I swear I'm not going to drink. V'shata mashkin harbe eno chayav el echad. Drink a lot of drinks, you're only liable one. But if you say Shvuah shelo chal yain v'shemen, right? What was it? Let me just read it. Shvuah shelo eshteh yain v'shemen udvash. You say I'm not going to drink wine and oil and honey. Then you're going to be liable. If you ate each of those things, you're going to be liable three. So again, we're going to say, Bishlama hatam de amart miyatra le pat lechiyuva in the bread case. So at least we add these extra words of pat each time. Elahacha my havalela meimar. But here there is no extra word. It's just those three. And maybe what you really mean, you're just trying to say, I'm not drinking these, but I'll drink other things. Which again means this is one oath, not three separate oaths. So why does the Mishnah say you're liable for each one? Amrav Papa, hacha b'munachim lefanav askinan. Maybe they were all in front of him and or her. Shayalo lomal shvuah shelo eshteh elu. You should have said, I'm taking an oath that I won't drink these. If you really were trying to say only these and no others, you would have pointed at them and said, I take an oath I'm not drinking these. Said, no, that doesn't mean, okay, and the fact that you said each one separately must mean you're designating them as three separate oaths. Say no, because when you say, I'm not drinking these, what's the problem? These are not, wine is not representative of all wine in the world. Oil is not, the oil in front of you is not representative of all oils in the world, etc. If you said that, people would think maybe you're just not drinking those, but you could drink from any other wine or oil or honey in the world. Ella, so therefore they said, well, again, we're going to keep trying to come up with what you could have said. And therefore what you did say, since you said it in this way, the way it appears in the Mishnah, it must mean you meant three separate oaths, because if you meant to just say these and no others, you could have said something else. You could have said, I take an oath, I'm not going to drink anything like these, meaning any wine, any oil, any honey. And the fact that you didn't say that, and you said specifically they were standing in front of you, and you said, well, I'm not going to drink wine, oil, and honey, you must have meant them as three separate oaths, because the simpler way to say it was, I'm not drinking anything like these. And we would have known. No, we wouldn't have known. Vidilma, kigon elu de lo shatina, b'tzir mehachi, utvei mehachi shatina. Maybe, or when you say like this, maybe you mean that exact amount of wine you're not going to drink, and that exact amount of oil you're not going to drink, and that exact amount of honey you're not going to drink. But a little more, a little less, maybe you would drink. Right? B'tzir is more, b'tzir is less, tfei is more. Maybe more or less you would be willing to drink. Ella, fine. So now they're going to say, Kigon de amar shvuah shelo eshteh min elu. Okay, here's a better one. You could have said, each time we keep saying, what could you have said? And why is it unique what you did say? And therefore it means three separate ones. Well, you could have said shvuah shelo eshteh from these types. And then it would be clear you're not talking about quantity, you're talking about the object itself, right? The type it is. Vidilma min elu hu de lo shatina, ha'inu gufayu shatina. Oh, wait, if you said, I take an oath I won't eat from these types, maybe it means, but I will eat the one right in front of me. I just won't eat any other wine like it, but I'll be willing to eat the ones that are standing right here. Okay, so finally they're going to say, Ema shelo eshteh elu uminayu. You could have said, I take an oath I won't drink these and their types. And that would have been a simpler way to say it. The fact that you then said, I won't drink wine, oil, and honey must mean that you meant to say each one as a separate oath. Okay, Rav Ika gives a different explanation and explains, in other words, originally we said it's talking about where it was in front of you, and that's how he explained it. That these three bottles were in front of you, and you were referring to them, and then anything like it. But now Rav Ika says it's when his friends were trying to get him to drink. And then the Amarlo bo v'shtei imi yain v'shemen dvash. Your friend says, "Go drink with me some wine or oil or honey." The hayalo lomal, you should have answered shvuah shelo eshtei imach. If you really wanted to say, "I don't want to drink these. I'm not willing to drink them," you should have just said, "I'm taking an oath. I'm not going to drink with you." Yain v'shemen v'dvash lamali. Why did you have to specify each type? It must be to say, I'm making a separate oath on each one. Tnanatam. So that we explained, these were basically for the pot case and then the liquid case, how we get to the fact that these three were meant to be three separate independent units. separate oaths also. Tananatan. Now we're going to quote a different Mishnah. From there, we're going to get back to our topic. This is a bit of a different case. This isn't I'm taking an oath not to eat something, but you claim that I owe you. Say, give me back the wheat and the barley and the spelt that you owe me. I gave you to watch, and you never gave it back to me, and you say, give it back. Shevuot she'ein lecha biyadi klum. I take an oath and I say, I swear I have none of them in my property. Eino chayav elacha. Okay, I'm only liable one. But if I say Shevuot she'ein lecha biyadi chitim usorim v'kosmin, if I say, no, I'm taking an oath that I don't have wheat, I don't have barley, I don't have spelt, chayav al kol echad ve'echad. That's considered three separate oaths. But Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Now, on this Mishnah, Rabbi Yochanan comes and says, okay, this is a Mishnah we're going to see later on Daf Lamed Vav. Rabbi Yochanan comes and says, Afilu pruta mikulam etztarefet. If you have a bit of wheat, a bit of barley, and a bit of spelt, but all together they add up to a kazayit, you'll be liable. Now, the question is, which part did he say this on? So, pligi bar Rav Acha v'Ravina, Chanamar aparte mechayve, aklali lo mechayve. Now, they have a different argument, and this is going to relate to Rabbi Yochanan because each one's going to understand Rabbi Yochanan differently. When I said I take an oath that I don't have, now what I'm really saying is I don't have anything of yours. And then I say, right, I don't have. And then I say wheat, barley, spelt. Is that viewed as four things? Number one, I'm saying I deny your claim entirely. And then I go specific. I don't have wheat, I don't have barley, I don't have spelt. So now, the first opinion is here, aparte mechayve, aklali lo mechayve. I'm only liable three. We look at, I don't have any, what you're really saying is I don't have any wheat. I don't have any spelt. I don't have any barley. Three separate. But we don't look at it as I don't have as a general oath. And therefore, when Rabbi Yochanan comes and says, you could take if you have a proof of all three together, it works, you'll be liable. They can't possibly be talking about the last one. Because the last one has three separate oaths, but one is on wheat, one is on barley, one is on spelt. If I don't have a pruta of each one, I'm not going to have to take an oath because that's not a requisite amount. But according to the first opinion, if I say Shevuot she'ein lecha biyadi klum, I swear I don't have anything, then I'll be liable if I have a pruta altogether of the three together. But Chanamar, aklali nami mechayve, you're also liable for just saying I deny the claim. So you'd actually, in a case where you had a pruta's worth of all three, you'd be liable 4 times for that. Okay, 4, you would have to bring sacrifices. There's a Shevuot Pikadon, you deny a claim, you'd have to bring a sacrifice for each one. And then Rabbi Yochanan would basically come and say, right, when Rabbi Yochanan says if there's a proof of all three, you'll be liable on the denial claim, the general one, not the chitim, so'orim, or kosmin, but on the fact that you said I don't have anything. Hachamai. So now here comes our big question. This is why they brought it here. What about by us? Would it be the same with I won't eat kind of oath? Would it be the same thing if you ate a little bit of each? Right? If I say I won't eat kosmin, I won't eat so'orim, I won't eat chitim, and then you ate a little bit of each altogether, adding up to a requisite amount of a kazayit in this case, right? An olive bulk, would you be liable? So I'm a Rava, hachi hashta? No, you can't compare them at all. Because they're each very different. Shevuot Pikadon is not the same as our Shevuot here. The reason why you can be chayav on the general one and on all the specific ones in that case is because the ha'i mishtaba v'hadran mishtaba mechayev tarte. There's a precedent for Shevuot Pikadon for being liable many times. If every time you come to me and say you owe me money and I deny the claim and I lie, I have to pay. So I deny the claim multiple times. Then you come to me again, Michelle, you owe me money. And I say, I don't owe you anything. And I lied multiple times. I can be chayav multiple times. But if as soon as I say I don't owe you anything, then each time, and then I say, right, I don't owe you, I'm sorry, if I say in Shevuot shelo I won't eat anything, not grains, not wheat, not barley, not spelt. Well, once I said I won't eat it, any of them, it already applies across the board. I already can't eat them. So when I take the later and I say not But barley or not wheat, I've already forbidden it to myself in the general one. And then there would never be a case of if I say I won't eat, and that already forbids me from eating anything, and then we have what I won't eat, well, each one is going to be, it's going to be a shvuah halal shvuah, which doesn't work, right? A shvuah on another shvuah. Once I'm already forbidden, I can't be forbidden again. So it wouldn't work. Okay, it's already forbidden to me. Okay, and therefore, what we tried to take this other Mishnah about Shevuot Pikadon and apply it here, no, they're very different. Shevuot Pikadon, you can be liable on the same money multiple times because each time you're denying a claim. This is different because once you forbid it, it's forbidden, and you can't add another prohibition to it, another oath to it. Shvuah shelo. Now we get to the end about the Shvuah shelo, and then you ate inedible foods. Okay, I can't remember now if it was the very end of the Mishnah, not yet the very end of the Mishnah, but right, you can't eat inedible foods. But then the end of the Mishnah was you can't eat nevelot u'trefot, right? If you say I won't eat and then you ate nevelot u'trefot, you actually would be liable. Okay, Rabbi Shimon said you're patur, but the rabbi said you're liable. Rabbi Shimon said you're patur because of mushba v'omei me Har Sinai. It's already forbidden on Har Sinai. But the rabbis say you can take that kind of an oath, you'd be liable. So the Gemara says Hagufa Kasha. This makes no sense. It contradicts. Amar Shvuah shelo ochal v'achal ochalin she'em ru'in lachila v'shata mashkin she'em ru'in l'shtiyah patur. Right? If you eat inedible foods, right, that's not eating. Well, Hadran Shvuah shelo ochal v'achal ve'lo trefot shchatzim u'ramasim chayav. Okay, also there. Now that's also not really eating because it's not kosher. You can't eat that. Mishna reisha de batur, mishna sefer de chayav. So why in the reisha inedible foods don't get included, but non-kosher foods get included? Doesn't make any sense. Halo kasha reisha b'stam v'sefa b'mefarish. They say reisha is where you just said I swear I won't eat. Then it doesn't include not inedible foods, and it doesn't include foods I'm not allowed to eat because it's not kosher. But the seifa is where I specified. If I say specifically, even though it didn't say so in the Mishnah, I say, I swear I won't eat nevelot u'trefot, and then I eat them, I'm liable according to the rabbis. Rabbi Shimon exempts, but I'm liable according to the rabbis. So the Gemara says, what you expect. What do you mean? Mefarish nani gufa tikshe. Amai. Mushba mehar sinai. Again, I'm already forbidden to eat nivelot and trefot and shkatzim u'rumasim. So if I say, I swear I'm not going to eat them, that's a shvuah chala shvuah. I'm already sworn in at Har Sinai. Can't do this. So Rav Ushmov, Rabbi Yochanan Amre, they all said, Bekolel dvarim mutarim im dvarim asurim. You said, I swear I won't eat bread, kosher bread, and also non-kosher animals. Okay, something like that. And right, if you're include, that's again going to be an isur where a shvuah that is chal because you've added more things. I told you we get back to this. You've added things that were forbidden previously. That weren't forbidden previously with things that were forbidden. Then actually there's room for your shvuah to be chal, and then it applies to everything. And that would be the case in the Mishnah. That's Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Shmuel's interpretation of the Mishnah. Rish Lakish Amar. No, I'll tell you what the case is. You're only mushba v'omed mehar Sinai if, okay, now we're going to explain. This is based on a machloket of the rabbis and Rabbi Akiva, which is when you take an oath, is it when you take a shvuah, I won't eat? Is it an oath on? Are you only liable when you ate a kazayit? And in this case, you said, "Oh, I swear I'm not going to eat even less than a kazayit." And then we can say, because you said, I swear I'm not going to eat less than a kazayit of shkatzim or rumasim or nevelot trefot, well, only a kazayit is forbidden by the Torah, and you added something else. And that would only accord with the rabbis, right? Or ibistam alibid to Rabbi Akiva, da'amar adam oser atzmo b'kolshu. Rabbi Akiva said, any oath is, when you take an oath, I'm not going to eat, even if you eat a little bit, you're liable. So he can't answer the chatzi shiur, but he has a better answer because any little, you wouldn't have to even say chatzi shiur because any little amount is actually not forbidden by the Torah. By Torah, only kazayit is forbidden. And that's Rish Lakish's explanation that either you could say, according to the rabbis, you would have to say chatzi shiur because generally a regular oath would be only a kazayit, right? And therefore, by saying, I'm taking an oath, that's a kazayit, that's the same as the Torah. But if you specifically said half a shiur, then it would work. Or bistam alibid Rabbi Akiva, that it would be you'd forbid yourself on any little amount. Okay, and again, because you forbid yourself on any little amount, then any kind of oath on non-kosher food is actually going to be applicable because it's actually not forbidden by Torah law. Now we're going to do, why did each one not hold like the other? We're only going to do the Rabbi Yochanan direction today. Why didn't he hold like Rish Lakish? He preferred to explain the Mishnah in a way that worked with every opinion. According to Rish Lakish, he had to explain, well, according to the rabbis, it would be where you said Chatzi Shiur, and according to Rabbi Kiva, it would be this. It would be, you wouldn't need to say that, but each one, it would be something different. It's easier to just explain the Mishnah simply according to everyone. That's why he came up with a different explanation of Kolel Dvarim Mutarim with Dvarim Asulim. But Rish Lakish, my Tamar Lo Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and we're going to get to this tomorrow, why he disagrees and didn't hold by Rabbi Yochanan's Isur Kolel. And that's because he has a bit of a different interpretation of how Isur Kolel works. Okay, so what we did today, we started with Achila being including drinking, and we had various different proofs for what that is. Then we got to this Pat Chitin, Pat Sorin, Pat Kosmin, why we can really derive from that case that it's clearly Lechalek, and that each one is going to be viewed as a separate prohibition. Same thing we did with the drinking, with the wine and the honey and the oil. Same kind of thing we had to explain. What could you have said that would have meant not to separate them, and that why does this really mean to separate? And then we took this other Mishnah in Shevuot Pikadon, we tried to apply it to here. We said that doesn't work, and then we finished with this. Why is eating non-kosher food? Why does that Shevuot really work? Both with the Mushba V'Omed case, and it seems like it would be more like an edible food, and why an edible food doesn't work, but non-kosher food does work, and why does the Shevuot apply? And we had then the two different explanations of why the rabbis really view this as a Mushba V'Omed Mehar Sinai kind of case. And with that, we finish for today. Wishing everyone Shabbat Shalom and Shavuot Tov.